The car rolled down the narrow tree-lined road, tires crunching over gravel that seemed older than time itself. Clara Bennett pressed her forehead against the window, watching the shadows of the dense forest stretch across the windshield like skeletal fingers. She had moved here from the city only a week ago, but already the quiet felt unnatural. Hollow Creek wasn't just small, it felt forgotten, as if the rest of the world had decided to leave it behind. Almost there, her mother said, glancing nervously at the rearview mirror. Clara had noticed her mother's unease since they left the city. The town had a way of creeping under one's skin, of twisting ordinary sights into something vaguely wrong. The house was at the edge of town, near the old abandoned mill, where the trees crowded close and the wind carried whispers through the branches. It was a Victorian structure, peeling paint, broken shutters, and an overgrown garden that had been ignored for decades. Clara shivered, not entirely from the cold. "This is nice," she said, though even her words felt hollow. Her father grunted. "It's isolated quiet, perfect for a fresh start." But Clara didn't feel perfect. She felt watched. The first night in Hollow Creek should have been quiet, peaceful. But Clara felt something wrong the moment she lay down. The house breathed like it was alive. As the wind died, the silence grew thick, too thick. Then she heard it, a whisper, soft, distant, almost curious. She told herself it was nothing old houses make noise, but the whisper came again, closer this time, curling around her name like a cold hand brushing her ear. Shadows stretched across the walls, twisting into shapes that should not exist. Her heartbeat echoed in the room. She pulled the blanket over her head, but the whisper followed her into the darkness under the covers. "Clara," it breathed. She froze, because whatever was whispering was already inside the room with her. The woods behind Clara's house were quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the sound of her own footsteps crunching over dead leaves. Something pulled her deeper, like an unseen thread wrapped around her ribs, dragging her forward. The trees grew stranger the farther she walked, twisted, leaning toward her, as if listening. Then she saw it, an abandoned mill, half swallowed by vines and rot, standing alone in a clearing that felt wrong, like the earth itself avoided it. She should have turned back. Every instinct screamed at her, but something on the ground caught her eye. Half buried in the soil was a small, leather-bound diary, its cover cracked, edges blackened as if burned. The moment her fingers touched it, the forest went perfectly still. No breeze, no sound, not even her breathing felt like her own. And in that silence, behind her, something whispered, "You shouldn't have found that." From that moment on, Hollow Creek stopped pretending. The town watched her. Clara could feel it. Windows slammed shut when she passed. Conversations died the second she came near. Even the children stared at her with eyes far too old. But the woods were worse, much worse. That evening, when the diary began to whisper on its own, Clara fled into the forest. Branches clawed at her arms as if trying to pull her back. The deeper she went, the more wrong everything felt. The trees stood too close. The silence pressed on her chest, and the air grew cold enough to sting her lungs. Then she heard it. Her name, spoken by dozens of voices at once. She spun around, and the shadows between the trees shifted. Tall, thin, faceless shapes moved just out of reach, bending in ways no human body could. One stepped forward, tilting its head as if studying her. On the wall of the old mill, she saw something carved deep into the wood. Hundreds of names. And at the very bottom, freshly etched, was her own. That's when she ran. not because she wanted to, but because something in those shadows began running too. Inside the mill, Clara felt the darkness breathing. Her lantern flickered, and from the shadows, something stepped out wearing her face, pale, hollow-eyed, smiling with broken teeth. Shadows crawled across the floor, reaching for her, and in her own voice the creature whispered, "Come home." The floor cracked open beneath her. Shadows surged up like living smoke, grabbing at her ankles, pulling her toward the pit. Clara ran, boards collapsing behind her, faceless figures reaching for her. One grabbed her leg. She ripped free and burst into the night as the mill screamed behind her. Clara thought she had escaped Hollow Creek. The car sped down the empty highway, leaving the woods behind, leaving the whispers behind. For the first time in days, she let herself breathe. But something felt wrong, like the darkness outside the window was following them. Then she saw it. In the rearview mirror, tall, faceless shadows lined the road behind them, silent, unmoving, watching her with blank, endless eyes. They weren't chasing her. They didn't need to. They were waiting. The air inside the car grew cold. A thin layer of fog crept across the glass beside her, and slowly, as if carved by an invisible finger, a single word appeared. Soon. Clara's breath froze in her throat, because that was the moment she understood. Hollow Creek never lets anyone leave. Once it chooses you, it follows, it hunts, it waits. And somewhere in the dark behind her, she heard that whisper again, soft, familiar, and impossibly close. Clara.